For this friend group, no matter how hard their university studies are, there's always something more to do their head in. The chaos of life and love won't let anyone rest. We are friends, but we fight each other and like each other so much we might hit on each other. If that description is anything you're interested in, I suggest you stop here because what will follow is full of spoilers. Welcome to Just Ranting, where I chaotically babble on about the plot of some sort of content I just consumed that elicited enough of an emotional response out of me to discuss it at length. Let's get started. So in today's episode of Just Ranting, we will be discussing the Thai BL TV show We Are. Because this show is absolutely hilarious, but also completely infuriating. So I think I'm going to try and break this up into the couples shown, and while the show advertises that there's 4 couples kind of involved, the 4th couple gets together in like the last episode and is like very minimal to the plot, so I am kind of going to skip over them. But the 3 other main couples that we are going to talk about is what I consider this. Everybody is stars of the show, they have a lot of involvement, but what I would consider like the main couple would be Phum and Peem, who are played by Pon and Puin. And then the other couples we'll be talking about are Q and Toey, and then there is also finally Tan and Khaofang, or just Fang. So, to start this off, the first couple that gets together is Tan and Khaofang, and I will say they are the least infuriating couple out of the 3, just because they get together really early in the series, and then they are like not really seen much through the rest, because I think it's just they're letting way for the other 2 couples to develop, but it's kind of a little disappointing that it seems like a lot of their relationship is cut out. Now when we see some of them later on, and like some scenes one-on-one with them together, it's not a lot, and it seems like a lot of their firsts were cut, which is really sad to see. But anyway, so the whole show and like how this kind of starts to develop, I think I have to give background first before we get specifically into each couple. The show starts with Peem, who is an artist, and his group of high school friends, which consists of Q and Tan and 2 others, which is Chain and Poon, which is the other couple that I won't be getting into that much. But so it starts with them, and they frequently meet up. Then there's what I would consider the engineering friend group that Tan is also friends with, where they kind of mesh together to make a bigger friend group, but it takes some time to get there, I will say that. So Peem and Q are fine arts students, they are artists, and the show starts with Peem taking his newly finished painting to a gallery that their department holds, and it is hit with a soccer ball from Phum. Phum kicks a soccer ball into Peem's painting, doesn't apologize, and there's a little altercation. So, let's just say Peem kicks Phum, and that causes obviously some tension, and Phum never apologizes for the painting. So this happens. Phum then approaches Tan and is like, hey, that was your friend, right? I need you to like set up a meeting, like to bring me to him. Tan doesn't want to initially because he's like, what are you gonna do to my friend? Like, I don't want you to hurt him. And he's like, I'm not. So he takes advantage. This is getting into the first couple. He's basically like, hey, so Fang is Phum's brother. He's like, hey, your brother, I need you to help me hit on him. So that's kind of like how that like starts, and you kind of learn backstory later in this thing, so I'm just going to insert it here, where apparently Tan and Fang had met in high school at a sporting thing, and they were kind of rivals, and they, like, when they met, they would, like, rile each other up, until one day Tan saw Phang and Peem getting, like, attacked or, like, robbed by a group of guys, and Tan stepped in, helped them run away, and then they became, like, really good friends afterwards. So then, in what he himself describes, he's not sure when it happens, but he started falling for Phang, and he did, like, at some point, like, there was a moment where he didn't know when it exactly happened, but he, like, started liking him, and then he's like, no, I don't want to ruin our friendship, but then it was like he liked him so much that, like, he couldn't, like, stop thinking about him. Then he just decided, you know what, I'm gonna try, I'm gonna at least try. So that's why he started pursuing in the first place. So it was a few things here. First, he, like, made the deal with Peem, saying, hey, like, bring me to lunch with you guys, or, like, set up somewhere where we can meet, which I don't understand, because he fully establishes that he is friends with Phang too, so I'm not really sure. But so Peem agrees to, like, set them up to meet at a bar, and they hang out for a little bit. Tan ends up bringing Phang home, or they, like, ride home together after the bar, because Peem ends up taking Peem home. We'll get into that later. And it's like, and then he, like, one other thing where he, like, buys him a dessert but tells Peem to say it was from him, Tan buys Phang a dessert and then tells Peem, hey, give this to your brother but say it's from you. I don't know what that was gonna succeed, but anyway. So that's, like, pretty much as much of flirting as happened until they get to the to a festival, and it's a Thai holiday that I can't remember the name of it at this moment, but they all get together in one big group and go to this festival, and they break off into pairs. It's the natural pairs of the couples in the friend group, because I want to tell you, I think one guy is basically not involved in a romantic relationship in this friend group. Their conjoined friend group, it's crazy. So they all break into pairs, and Tan and Phang head off, and they're, like, standing next to a river, and I'm trying to remember exactly how this happened, because I'll be honest, a lot of this show had me watching, or, like, basically just reading the subtitles, because I get severe secondhand embarrassment, or, like, I cringe so hard at some of these scenes, where usually I'll skip over them, but these were really entertaining, so I basically kind of just disassociated from the scene by, like, not watching their faces while they were saying the things they were saying. So I can't exactly remember how this was initiated, but basically Tan just, like, admits that he likes Phang, and he's like, I think it was an accident, but then he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna go for it, and asks if they should start dating, and Phang's like, okay. Like, that's it. That's how that happens. And they started dating from then on. It is a little weird, because it seems like they're, apparently, I, like, kind of come to find out that they're hiding it from their friends a little bit, until Tan accidentally calls Phang babe in front of all of them, and then it was, like, a whole, oh my god, when did that happen? Which I'm like, they were so obviously dating. Whatever. I think part of it was teasing, but some of it was serious. Anyway, so that is their relationship, and I mean, like, there's not really much of a development. They're both, like, deeply in love with each other, but Phang kind of, like, holds stuff back a little bit more, especially in public, than Tan. Tan is, whoa, public displays of affection, baby talk, like, oh, babe, oh my, I love you so much. He's really entertaining, and it's really sweet to see, but, like, yeah, it was a lot. So that is how they get together. That is I don't even know what episode. It was really, really soon, maybe episode 6, and the show is 16 episodes, which is actually one of the longest BLs I've ever seen. Which I'm really impressed with, but also I almost think it was a little too long, but I digress. So they are together now. The next couple that get together is Q and Toey, and this couple is the one I was rooting for most. I will be honest, because they are so cute, and I will tell you. Okay, well, I'll mention it when I get to that part. But so Q is in fine arts with Peem. They're best friends. They were high school besties, and his mentee is Toey. He has been, like, helping him with his painting, and Toey had started later in his high school career in, like, drawing and, like, his artistic abilities, so he reaches out to Q quite a bit for help. It also, I think it's important to like mention, it seems like everybody really baby spoils. They spoil Toey like quite a bit. He was a sophomore when this show started, and Q was junior. So it's not like he's like really young. I think he just like almost has like the innocent vibe to him, and everybody wants to take care of him type of deal. So Peem like buys him dinner all the time. He's invited out with their friends all the time. Everybody like buys him snacks and stuff like that. Q is like the only person who really doesn't. He mentors him, but like really it doesn't go to that extent with the rest of them. And it is, you can see as a viewer quite obviously that Toey has a massive crush on Q, but nobody else seems to pick up on that. He's like kind of always like searching for Q and like wanting to hang out with him and like whatever, and you can kind of see a little bit of that from Q, but he's more like emotionally closed off, so he'll like always be available to help in his own way for Toey specifically. And so that like is a lot of like the beginning of the relationship until one day they're having a massive sleepover at Peem's house, and they're all hanging out. Toey, Toey's friend Matt, I believe, and like all of like Peem and Q's like high school friends, and all of them are hanging out at Peem's house. And it's the next morning. They had drank a lot. They were kind of really tired. Q was still sleeping, and Matt makes the offhand comment, oh, they were playing the King's game. So they have like a bunch of cards and one king card, and whoever gets the king gets to tell the like two numbers what to do. So it's basically like what happened the night before was the king said, okay, numbers 1 and 3 like kiss each other on the cheek like 3 times, and it was Q and Toey. And Matt makes the offhand comment the next morning, oh, you must have really liked last night, like you must have been really excited. And everybody's like kind of confused about the comment, and then everybody's like, oh yeah, Toey likes Q, and everybody freaks. It is the funniest sequence of events ever, because that sentence is said, they're starting to freak out, and then Q walks into the room and everybody's just like dead silent. Like so quiet, and everybody's just staring at Q, and then one of the guys is like, you need to take a shower, and then starts like pushing him out of the room like so quickly. So that happens, and then they all sit down, and finally Toey explains like he has known Q since he was in high school, and not like mutually, I'll get into it, but he's known Q, or at least known of Q, since he was in high school, and Q is the reason he got into painting. When he was in high school, he would frequent a coffee shop very often that Q would also go to, and he had like a bunch of like this coffee shop was covered in paintings, and the owner told Toey, oh yeah, like a junior of mine paints, he's like really good, and these are all of his. And Toey like saw them, and he had the guy had also told him, you're about the same age. So Toey looked at all these paintings and is like, somebody my age can do this. Is this good? Maybe I can like do it too. And so it was kind of like Q's paintings that inspired him to start getting into drawing. And so he started going to the cafe and would frequently see Q around, or just as a coffee shop customer, and he would catch his attention, and he would see him drawing all the time. But he never made the connection that the guy's paintings on, like the guy that the shop owner was talking about was Q. So he was, to him, they were two different people, but I'm telling you that they're the same person. And one day he happened to like find a wooden pencil box, and he told him, he like gave it to the shop owner, like, hey, I found this. And the shop owner was like, oh, he's really good. The owner has been like really looking for this really hard. He's gonna want to thank you. And I'm trying to think. Oh, he's like, oh, just, it was no problem. Just make sure it gets to him. And the shop owner basically was saying, oh, it's the guys whose paintings are up. And so he was like, oh, just give it to him. I'm grateful that he has it back. Well, when the next time he went, the shop owner gave him a picture that was like he said, hey, he painted this for you as a thank you. and it was a little cute drawing. And so Toey took that and was like, oh, it was super like in awe. He's like, he didn't have to do that, so he wrote a sticky note, and pasted it to the back of one of his paintings, because one of the paintings was sitting on an easel, and told the shop owner, like, hey, just tell him I left a note for him, like, on the back of his painting. And they started communicating through these sticky notes, because then what Toey knew him as, what was it, sharp pencil, or like something pencil, is the like thing he signed, basically. And what was the drink? Something latte. Milk latte? Sweet milk latte? I don't remember. But he would sign off. That was what Toey's like nickname was to this other guy. So they would like exchange sticky notes back and forth until one day I think it was the last time they'd ever exchanged sticky notes. Q was graduating from high school. He was at the shop, and somebody mentioned Q and that he was the one who had drawn all the paintings, and that's when he made the connection that, oh, this guy I've been seeing here often is the guy I've been talking to through sticky notes. And he's like, oh my god. And he had started developing feelings for the person he was talking to through the sticky notes. And that was the last day he ever received a sticky note, which will always is like, oh, I'll always be rooting for you in everything you do. And Q had stopped sending him messages, and Toey was very confused on like why, because he was like what did I do? And he wasn't sure why he had stopped and he kind of let it go until he had signed up to be in the fine arts program at the college he's going to now, and then happened to see Q again, and then he wasn't going to mention it because Q didn't know who he was. So he's always had like this crush. So he explains this to the group of guys, and then all of them are like, we think Q might like you too. So Poon specifically is like, we need a plan. We need to set up a thing for Q to like admit his feelings, or like realize his feelings at the very least. So they decide to have one of their other friends, Chain, start hitting on Toey to basically make Q jealous. So this starts as like a few like instances. Starts when they visit a park, and Peem like drags Q there, and then invites Toey to the park too, and he shows up with Chain, and Peem's like, oh, you didn't know? Yeah, they're like in the talking stage. And Q's like, what? He's like, oh yeah, you just need to pay attention more. So that happens. They go, Toey and Chain go off together and like take some like cutesy pictures. Q follows them. He's like, it's too hot here. I need to go somewhere else. I want to go somewhere else. So he follows them and then helps them like take a group picture where like Chain and Toey are obviously playing up like being close, and he like goes off in a huff. So that's like sequence one. But one of the next scenes was they all went to an amusement park, and it was basically the plan solely to do this thing where Chain was like doing everything for Toey, and it was really obvious because everybody was making it obvious, but also like Chain hates roller coasters. Toey absolutely loves them. So he's wanting to go on these like serious roller coasters. Chain is about to throw up after every single one of them, but is going on them anyway, and just to like appease Toey and what he likes. And so all this is happening, and then Q, I think, pulls Chain away at some point and is like, dude, like, what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm flirting with Toey. Do you have a problem with that? He didn't say anything then. But, and so then Chain goes back to report, like, hey, stuff is happening. Because he obviously pulls me away. He obviously has some sort of feelings about what's going on. So they, like, do all of this. Chain is hating his life. Dude is so sick. Is not okay. And so at once Q goes onto a ride because Toey wants to ride the same one twice, and Chain's not okay at all. And so Q follows him onto the ride. And then Toey is like, let's go to a haunted house. And all the rest are like, doesn't really want to. I'm so surprised that like Toey doesn't seem like the kind to be like an adrenaline person, or like seeking adrenaline rushes. But dude, he was all for it. So he's like, come on guys, let's go to the haunted house. Chain does not want to go, neither does a lot of the people. So Q literally goes up, drags him, and grabs his hand and drags him in there. And as they're going through, he stops him to have a conversation in the middle of this haunted house and is like, you know that Chain is like flirting with you, right? And Q's like, Toy is like, yeah, I kind of noticed. He's like, nice. And he's like, that's how you feel about it? And then Toy's like, yeah. And he's like, Q's like, well, what if I also flirt with you? And then fully kisses him in the middle of this haunted house. And it's so funny because it's like not like too big of a thing, except the fact that Toy goes like unresponsive, is in shock, does not react, does not know how to react. So this whole thing happens in the haunted house. They come out. Toy is still like dazed, is being dragged about by Q, and so everybody's like, okay, something happened. So after the amusement park, they all gather up they finally like set up a meeting after, and Q, it was supposed to come later, and so they're talking before he gets there. What happened? It seems like he definitely likes you, like, obviously this guy likes freaking Toy because he just said, I want to flirt with you, and kissed him. Whatever. So he's like, you know what? I don't know if I think I'm gonna like really try and like. Or Toy is like, I think it's time that we like try and get together, like stop playing like the games and so he stands up and announces, using Q and his nickname from the sticky notes. It's like, we're finally Pencil. I'm so annoyed that I cannot remember their names. It's like Pencil and Latte are gonna be together. So this man screams this, and then Q. The way it's shot is he screams this, and then you see the pants of Q. You know it's Q because they're like paint stained, and he had dropped his bag, and is like, dude is just like completely in shock, obviously, because one, he didn't know Toy was this guy he was talking to on the sticky notes, and he just figured out that a lot of his friend group is like plotting to get him and this guy together. So he's like in complete shock and kind of goes a little aggressive because Toy is immediately like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like starts like crying because I almost feel like he thinks he deceived him, which he did in some way. But he's like immediately tearing up and it's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I just hear me out. And I can't remember exactly what Q responded, but he kind of got a little aggressive with it and walked out, saying like, so I was being kind of like set up, and like you knew all along that I was the guy you were talking to in the stick, that kind of situation, and then walks out. Oh, and here's the moment I was talking about earlier. This show is a comedy until freaking Troy is crying his heart out, and then you're bawling with him. Oh my god, I don't remember the actor's name right now. It's so heartbreaking seeing this scene. He falls apart because he's like, oh my god, like not only like is he mad at me, but like I truly hurt his feelings, and like there's no hope is like his thought process. And so Peem immediately gives him a hug. All of them are trying to comfort him. I think it's Matt and Phum take Peem away in a car, and Q is sitting out on the curb outside, and Peem goes and talks to Q, and this conversation goes really well. You would expect, because Q basically admits, like, he's like, I do have really good feelings for Toy, and like, even if they, like, when they were not the same person, I thought Toy, like, the reason I stopped sending those sticky notes was because I felt scared, because I was having these feelings for somebody I had never really met in person before. So it's the reason why I stopped, was because I was having like such intense feelings for this guy I didn't know, and then he met Toy, and he was thinking that Toy would be the next guy that could like make him feel those feelings again. And so Peem's like, you gotta talk to him, and like explain that to him, because Toy is devastated. And So that conversation goes really well. He's literally admitting, he's like, I have feelings for him, and I had feelings for the guy I was talking to through sticky notes. Oh my god, they're the same guy. Like, he was kind of just like coming to terms with that, but he was still he wasn't saying anything like, oh, I don't want to see Toey again, like, I feel betrayed. That wasn't happening. And except the next morning, Toey is waiting on the steps of their department building, and like Q just walks past him, completely ignores him. What? You just told Peem the night before that you would talk this through with him and explain your feelings, but that doesn't happen. So he completely ignores him the next morning, and Toey is like completely hurt. He's like, oh my god, I really screwed this up. So they go into the department building, and they kind of have, or like, and Toey's being really sad. He's in a different class, and I believe Peem and Q have a conversation, but Q actually is like, ends up picking up Toey at his next class and is like, we're going to get lunch. And they go get lunch, and they joke around without really mentioning it at all, and then that's like, they don't talk about it. So everybody's like, but Q is still being a little weird. So everybody's like, what the heck? Why are you doing this? So that, through all of that, they didn't talk about their feelings or anything, and Q's still being a little bit weird, but they're kind of gone back to like their normal dynamic a little bit. I still cannot, I'm like, this makes like zero sense to me, but whatever. So this whole thing happens, and they're like, no, okay, so everybody knows he has feelings. We just have to push him to say his feelings, because obviously, apparently he's not going to say that either. So Poon comes up with a new plan. Well, not really a new plan. He's like, forced proximity, let's do this. So they all he all signs them up for a volunteer camp at like a school in a, like, distant Providence, and is like, we're still going with the chain thing. We're still gonna have Chain hit on Toey, and it's gotta push him to say something. So they all go to this camp thing, and as they're like talking or whatever, and Chain is continuing to like flirt now with Toey. So like, obviously everybody can see that Q is getting jealous of these two, and like they keep kind of like pushing it until finally, like, they were repainting the fence of the school, and they were all doing it together. And I think it was after the moment where Toey was like, let's like do cute drawings on the fence, like, so they can have like they can smile when they come into school, like seeing cute little animals or something. And Q told him like, no, just paint. And I forget, or Toey turns and asks Chain like, come on, you think it's a good idea, don't you? And Poon, who had orchestrated all this, he's like, oh, you're only asking him because you know he's gonna say yes to you, he won't say no to you. And Chain's like, yeah, I do think it's a really good idea. So they put it to a vote, and Poon says, yeah, it's a good idea. So they do it. Well, before they start, then Toey is like, oh, I'll teach you how to paint and how to draw to Chain. And it's that moment where Q is like, Chain, I need to talk to you. This is the second conversation he's had with Chain. And keep in mind, he knows that they like already collaborated together to set him and Toey up using Chain. So I don't know if he thought like maybe Chain caught actual feelings and then realized like they weren't really together or like doing anything together, so decided to pursue him, whatever. So he pulls Chain away and is like, hey, we need to have like, what are you, I don't want you to like you shouldn't be messing with Toey. And Chain's like, why? It's not like you guys aren't, or you don't have anything feelings for him, do you? Like, why do I need to stop? Like, what's the reason for me to stop? And first, Q goes like, is very silent, and Chain's kind of like egging him in that direction, is trying to push him. And note that I think Peem, Tan, Poon, and Toey has all followed them into this, like, behind this, like, the area they went behind the school to talk, and is listening into this conversation. So Q very quietly goes, because I like Toey. Chain's like, what? and Q goes, I like Toey. and literally everybody starts freaking out. Chain is like, see, that's all I was waiting for to hear. Guys, you can come out. So 3 of the guys, or 2 of the, it was actually, maybe Tan wasn't there, because it was his friend Matt who was there. And it was 4 of them, but I can't remember exactly the makeup of who was there. But, so 2 of the, Peem and Poon come out, and are like, we were just waiting for you, like, this is another setup, like, we were just waiting for you to freaking admit your feelings, because you wouldn't do it on your own. And they're like, come on, Toey, come out. And he's like, what? Q's like, what? Toey has again gone completely in shock and is sitting there dazed against, like, whatever wall they were hiding behind, and is, like, not moving, doesn't know what's happening. So, is, like, not moving, doesn't know what's happening. And so Matt basically has to pull Toey out from behind this wall, still in a daze, puts him in front of Q, and then the rest of them leave to let them have the conversation in private. The only time this ever happens, by the way, literally, everybody is so public with their, like, affection and, like, all of their relationships. This happens, usually any, like, confession, like, 2 of the 4 confessions, well, actually, 3 of the 4 confessions that have happened on this freaking show were done in front of their whole entire friend group. And I'm saying 3 because I'm counting Q's as public, because technically it was. But they leave them to have a conversation about, like, what their situation. Basically, they just admit that they like each other, and that's it. They still don't start dating until later. That's the other thing, is, like, it's more prominent in the, like, main couple that we're getting into next, but they'll, like, basically be dating, but, like, not technically count it until it's, like, made official, which I know, like, is technically, like, there's some, like, official steps sometimes, but when you're, like, that affectionate towards each other, you're going on full dates, and you're still, like, it's technically not official. You're basically there, whatever. Anyway, so that was, like, their storyline. I honestly find them so cute. Now we're on to the main couple, and the one that takes the longest to get together, but also not really. It's so infuriating. So now we're on to the main couple, technically, Phum and Peem, which I've explained, like, the beginning of their story, which was, Phum ruined Peem's painting, they got into a fight, whatever. So, starting from that point, when Phum asked Tan if he could meet up with Peem, what he went to ask, or, like, basically, and it's, here's the thing, this is never really fully explained, why, I don't know if he wanted to have, like, a power trip, but he had gone to the hospital and basically accumulated a hospital bill that was, like, unreasonable, and went to Peem saying, you need to pay this hospital bill. And Peem's like, what? Because it was like, it was 200,000 baht, I'm not sure what that translates into USD, but it was like, you need to pay this hospital bill. You need to pay this hospital bill off because I was in the hospital because you hurt me. And Peem's like, I don't have that type of money. So Phum goes like, okay, well then you need to basically, like, be my servant for, like, the next 2 months, I think is what he said. And Peem's like, that's way too long. You also ruined my painting that I couldn't take to the gallery anymore. Like, I couldn't show it off in the gallery because it was ruined. So you also ruined something of mine. So they basically come to an agreement saying Peem would only act as Phum's servant for the length it took him to repaint the painting that was ruined. So that's, like, kind of their agreement, and what ends up, like, basically making them stick together for the next couple of weeks to develop feelings for each other. And it very quickly happens. Like, Phum starts, like, making up stuff for Peem to do. Some of it is, like, intentionally just, like, as to get Peem annoyed, but also it seems to be like he just, like, enjoys Peem's company. So, like, for instance, like in the beginning, he's like, I want you to come over to my faculty and buy me a drink, like, from a station that's like 5 feet away. Or, sit down and have lunch with me, like, I'm gonna go shopping and you need to come to carry my bags, or like, I want you to do my laundry or clean my room, stuff like that. But he makes it like the tasks a little bit annoying because he shops excessively. Kind of relevant-ish, the dude's rich, so that's why the whole hospital bill thing was not a big deal to him. Peem is not. That's why the money was a big deal for him. But he, like, the whole clothes thing, he was like, oh, the washer and dryer, or the washer isn't working, and so you're gonna have to do it, like, by hand. And the second time he took Peem out shopping to carry all of his bags, he told Peem, hey, I need to run an errand real quick, I'll be back, and left Peem in the mall. And he didn't intend to come back. He literally went home and went to sleep. He was thinking Peem would leave, like, after an hour, maybe. Like, he wouldn't put up with, like, waiting that long. Peem stayed there until the mall closed. And so it made Peem, I think that was kind of like a changing point in the relationship, because it genuinely made Peem feel super bad. So he's like, that was not my intention. It was a prank, but I didn't think he would wait that long, and I feel really bad. And he actually apologized, which was kind of like a changing point in their relationship, and where they started getting closer and started contacting each other just for fun rather than the whole, like, agreement thing. And I think it really hit Peem when, after that whole thing, Peem started, like, aggressively, like, trying to finish his painting, because he's like, I can't believe this guy would do this, I don't want to be near him any longer than I have to, before he apologized. And so when Peem went to apologize, the first thing out of his mouth was like, he was working on the painting, and he's like, I need to get this done as fast as I can, because I don't want to see you ever again after this agreement's up. And it hit Peem hard, because he really did like having Peem to talk to. So they start, like, getting closer, speaking. I'm not sure, I can't tell you for sure exactly when this happens, but they go to that festival where Tan and Fang get together, and they have lunch together a bunch, and Peem's going out of his way to drive Peem to and from school, or, like, wherever he needs to be, or, like, is sticking around quite a bit. And Peem, they have, like, a few moments, like, where they're, like, a little too close to each other, or, like, they stare into each other's eyes, whatever. And it's one moment where I'm trying to think if it was, I'm trying to think, I don't remember what it was after. Peem drove him home from an event, and they were saying goodbye, and Peem was going back to work on a painting of his, or an assignment of his, and it was the festival, I believe, because Peem won him a doll, and they, like, are saying goodbye, and Peem kisses Peem goodbye. Then they separate. Peem does a literal happy dance. But the next day he's, like, very standoffish and isn't really, like, he's like, why did I do that? Which is so confusing, because the dude wasn't drunk. He, like, was completely about his wits and was super happy it happened afterwards. So another level of, like, really annoying. Like, what do you mean? That was something you both wanted to happen. And then then he ends up, they, like, they don't kiss again, but they're, like, basically getting closer, until, like, the whole volunteer camp thing. Peem joins just because Peem's going. And the problem with the volunteer camp is there's a new contender, I don't remember the guy's name, that shows up, where he happened to see Peem at, like, the back of Peem at, like, the a drink stand, and came up and, like, hit him on the back of the head and was like, hey, where have you been? Because he thought he was his friend, and they had never met each other before. So Peem's like, who are you? What's going on? And the guy's like, oh, I'm so sorry, and it's like, fine, you can just pay for my drink. Or Peem's like, you can just pay for my drink and it's fine. And that is the only interaction these two have. It goes from that to the guy ends up seeing Peem put up the poster for the volunteer camp because they had to try and find more people to join, and decides, oh, maybe it's an opportunity to get to know him better, so follows Peem to the volunteer camp. Met him once, spoke all of like 3 sentences to each other, and he's like, I'm gonna follow this guy to the volunteer camp. Okay. So he shows up, and they're like, Peem's like, oh, you're joining, that's really fun. And the other guy's like, yeah, I tried to get my friends to come, but they wouldn't, so I'm kind of on my own. Can I like stick around with you, because you're the only guy I really know? Which he doesn't know him. Again, they spoke like 2 sentences to each other. I do not understand, whatever. So he's like, hey, can I stick with you? Is that okay? And Peem's like, he's super nice, and is like, and is always down to have more friends, or like, have a good time with a bunch of, like, his friend group is ginormous, and he's like, oh, of course, like, just, that's, what's another one? So, he's super like, oh, that's fine. And then, like, on the bus ride there, the guy asked Peem to sit next to him because he doesn't know anybody else. And Poom's like, seeing this actively, and is so annoyed. Is so annoyed with this happening. So he's already a little, like, disappointed that he's not having as much time with Peem specifically. And they're talking and spending time with each other a little bit, and still, like, basically building a basis for their relationship. And except one night, they're all sleeping in one room on pads on the floor in this school that they're, like, helping out. And Poom made sure to sleep next to Peem, because the other guy was trying to sleep next to Peem, and he kind of butted in. As he should. I'm just saying. Anyway, Poom, so they're on mats next to each other, and they fully cuddle. Like, full spoon, the one night of this trip. The fact that they're, like, not discussing feelings, but this is happening, crazy. Anyway, that happens. The next day, this other guy is still being, like, attached to Peem like crazy. And there's, like, a few moments where they're, like, basically alone, and Poom is trying to intervene, or, like, insert himself into the situation, until he, like, sees them together one night. And this is the day that the other guy literally approaches Poom and says, I like Peem. Because he had realized that Poom had feelings for Peem too. And he wanted to say, hey, you have competition, and I'm actively trying to be with Peem. So, so he literally was point blank told, hey, you have competition. And then Peem is completely oblivious and still, like, hanging out with this guy and being really a little overly friendly for a guy he just met. And so Poom is annoyed. Like, kind of, not rightfully, but kind of. I mean, they're not together, but they're, like, almost there. And he happens to see them, like, on a swing. Like, he went to find Peem, and him and this other guy were on the playground, like, laughing, like, talking and laughing. And Poom, seeing this, felt awful. So he, like, stalked off from everybody else and, like, was sulking. And when Peem found him, Poom's like, I really don't like how close you are with this guy. And Peem's just like, we're just friends. For some reason, Poom doesn't decide to say, hey, you're not just friends, this guy has feelings for you, and that's uncomfortable to me. No, the dude decides, I want, you know, like, you haven't finished your painting yet, which, by the way, he had at this point. Peem was actively saying he hadn't finished it, but he fully had. He had finished it a little bit ago, and was just drawing out their agreement so they could have reasons to be next to each other. Now they're both doing that. But anyway, Poom's like, hey, you're still acting as my servant? I want you to stop hanging out with this guy. And Peem, he gets annoyed. And he has a right to, especially because he's using this agreement to dictate his actions in his life. But Peem's like, I don't have to listen to everything you tell me to do, and leaves. And Phum instantly realizes, like, he did something wrong. Good for him. So he goes and talks to his friend, and his friend is like, I think this... Well, first of all, nobody knew about their agreement. They just found it a little awkward. Like, they started hanging out suddenly, and they found it really weird. And that they, like, resolved things about the painting and soccer and kick situation. So they all, like, didn't know about the agreement. So, but Phum tells one of his friends, like, hey, this is the agreement, this is what just happened, like, I don't know, I'm just, like, really upset, and I know I did something wrong. And his friend tells him, yeah, I think the agreement one is dumb, and I also think you did something wrong. So Phum's like, great. So he went next to him the next day and apologized, and they had, like, whatever, and Phum said, actually, I think we should call the agreement off, it's okay. Peem is the one who's like, no, we had an agreement, I stick to my word. I'm gonna finish this painting. Again, painting is fully finished. So, they... Again... Oh, that was it. That was what I got annoyed about. Sorry. So, before they make up the next day, Phum stalks off and talks to his friend, for help. But Peem goes to Q and explains the situation and says, like, I don't know, or, well, Q kind of overheard some of the argument they had, and Q's like, well, do you like him? And Peem goes, I don't know, I'm confused. What do you mean? What do you mean you're confused? You literally cuddled last night, and you've been kissed, you've, like, frequently kissed, like, multiple times. I can't tell you the count, but it's, like, more than once. So what do you mean? Whatever. And by the way, their first kiss you initiated, and we're really excited about. What? Anyway, so they make up the next day, and everything seems pretty okay. But they're still, like, not to the point of, like, making them, like, talking about your feelings or making themselves official. And such a big... So, they get back from the camp, and I don't know, they're having a big drinking party with all their friends, and it's there that, Peem suddenly stands up, and I think they were having a talk about, like, how, Q and Toey had finally, made it official, and that, Tan and Fang were dating, like, whatever, the couples in the group. And Peem stands up, and he never really says what he was meaning, or, like, what he was planning to say. He chickens out and just, like, asks for another drink, but it almost seems like he might have been confessing that him and Phum had something. It's not 100% sure, but he doesn't say anything. He sits back down, and that's when Phum says, oh, I have something to say. I like Peem, and, like, how do you feel about that? So Peem is, like, kind of silent. It's like, are you serious? And Poom's like, dead serious, I really like you. And Peem goes, okay, then win me over. As if he hasn't already. But okay, fine, whatever. So that's how that whole thing starts. Poom starts actively, like, finding ways to, like, more openly flirt with him, bringing him lunch every day, helping out with his aunt's cafe, stuff like that. And again, at this point, they have started casually kissing, like, pretty often. How this is not already dating, I do not know, but whatever. So Poom is, like, pursuing Peem. Peem I think has already made his mind up. He's just playing with Poom a little bit and seeing what he's gonna do, until it is now a full year after the original event, because we are now next to the new gallery. Now, I will say, like, the next year's gallery, I will say, they said that the next year's gallery was a little bit earlier than the previous one, but still, it is important to note that, like, we've almost been through a year of the storyline, and Phum and Peem, who were a little bit flirty at the first gallery, are still not officially together. So it's coming up, whatever, and I forgot to say, Phum did end up finding out that the painting was not finished and that Peem was lying, because he ended up going to his room and seeing the finished painting, and Peem played it off like, you're not a real artist, there's still a lot of detail I have to add to it, like, it's not really finished. He's lying. He did end up adding something. Technically it wasn't finished, because he decided later to add some flowers to the scene. It's related to him and Phum's relationship, but that's beside the point. And so he's like finishes the painting and he's submitting it for the next year's gallery, and he's like calls Phum and is like, hey, do you want to take, Phum actually is the one saying, hey, I want to go with you when you take your painting to the gallery, because of what happened the previous year. He doesn't want to get it to get ruined again. So he's like, let me escort you to this guy to submit your painting. And so the next morning, Peem is waiting for Phum to submit it, and he has to submit it like by 1 p.m. that day, and he's waiting basically until the last second, and he can't get a hold of Phum, which is really weird. And he finally has to just leave without talking to him and submit his painting by himself. And he had contacted his brother saying like, hey, I can't get a hold of Phum, what's happening? And finally his brother got back to him and said, hey, he's okay, you can probably get in contact with him now. Well, this probably annoys me a little bit, because he ends up like, he's sitting, after submitting his painting, he's sitting like outside one of the school buildings at like a picnic bench, and the guy from the camp, the other guy who had a crush on him, comes up, and he decides to, instead of contacting Phum like Fong said he could now, he vents to this guy about the fact that like Phum had broken their promise. And I'm like, venting to the guy who has a crush on you. Oh, and also fully the guy, Peem now knows that this guy has a crush on him because he admitted it. Peem had told him, hey, I'm sorry, I actually have a crush on somebody else. And so shut him down. Like, that's not the issue here. It's that he's complaining about his relationship to a guy who likes him. That's one part of the issue. It actually ended up not being an issue in the scheme of the show. I just found it a little bit annoying. They got over it, like because Phum ends up showing up to talk to Peem, and they, like, he's not angry that he's talking to this other guy. So what ended up happening, I should explain that he has a bad relationship with his parents. Phum has a bad relationship with his parents, and, well, his dad specifically, because when he was younger, he was a very upbeat kid and had so many friends and was so outgoing, but when their family's business started to go a little rough, Phum's dad decided to send him overseas, and so he was sent away from all of his friends into a place where, with a language he did not know. He was completely isolated until like their business did a little bit better, and then his dad brought him back. But at this point he had like been alone for so long that he held this like serious resentment against his dad for doing that, and still like actively does, because his dad, even after like bringing him back from overseas, his dad pretty much solely just focused on the business and like kind of neglected him. So that was like a serious issue for Phum, and he does not like him, or does not like his dad at all. So he had ended up getting in a fight with his dad that morning as he was trying to leave, and his dad was like being a little bit confrontational and wouldn't let him. I mean, I say wouldn't let him. Technically he could leave, but was trying to have a conversation with him. And from what I grasped, it seems like Phum walked away from this conversation super, like, I don't want to say depressed, but like he wasn't in a good mood, and he didn't want that to reflect on Phum. He was already late, but he didn't Peem. So he didn't want to reflect his like bad feelings and like bring him down on a day that he was like, oh, this is a big deal for him to be spending this painting. He didn't want to bring him down, and then he didn't fully explain when he approaches Peem that later that day, what happened, because he was like, this would put a damper on his mood, and then it's also like, I can deal with my own issues, like I don't have to run for him for comfort. So he didn't really fully explain because of that, and but that just made like Peem more angry, because he's like, to him it's just like he ditched him. So they had a little bit of an issue until I want to say like a little bit later. I'm trying to think how much later. Finally Poom approaches him again and is like, actually, this is what happened. And Peem's like, stupid, I know, your brother told me that you had a fight. I'm angry that you didn't, I wasn't angry that you didn't show up. I was worried about you, like, because I couldn't get in contact with you. I was worried that something had happened, like physically harmed you. And when Fang told me that you were okay, I was really happy, but then I was annoyed that you didn't want to tell me about what was wrong. Like, we agreed that we could, like, share stuff with each other. So I was just annoyed that you weren't open with me about what was happening. And Poom's like, I'm really sorry, like, I really didn't want to put, like, such a damper on your day. This was supposed to be a really big deal for you, and I didn't want to make it about, like, my problems. Whatever. They make up, they hug. It's, like, a super cute moment between them. Great. Come the gallery day. It's a big day. Peem's painting is up. All of their friends have gathered to, like, both celebrate Peem and Q, because Q has the painting up for the second time. And this is the day that Poom decides to make their relationship official. So they go through the gallery day or whatever and are doing, like, covering everything and, like, or all the celebrations and whatever. And as everybody's leaving, Poom holds Peem back and, like, has a discussion with him. Oh, by the way, the freaking conversation they had before where they made up and it was like, or whatever, Peem fully tells him he loves him. Like, they fully confess their feelings for each other. And again, not official. They don't make it official there. No. Whatever, these men. Anyway, so Poom and Peem have this talk at the gallery, and Poom is like, I like you. Will you be my boyfriend? And Peem's like, sure. I mean, it was sweet, but this was like episode freaking 13, I think. We waited so long, and they were so infuriating. They had been freaking basically dating since episode 5. I'd say 8, maybe. That might be generous. It could have been before that, but so everybody's happy ending. The final couple really, like, I was a little less interested in their story, and there wasn't much of their story. Basically, it's Chain and Poon. Chain had been, like, kind of actively flirting with Poon for a while and trying to, like, portray his feelings through that without, like, directly saying it. Poon is oblivious, and everybody else knows. And it isn't until, like, the last episode where Chain admits that he likes Poon, and they, like, fully have this conversation in front of their whole friend group and have their first kiss in front of the whole friend group at, like, a drinking party. It's insane, but it is it sets off a chain of events that's pretty funny. But, like, again, how many public displays of affection and, like, talks about feelings and, like, the relationship that happens publicly made this show a little bit of a it was still funny, and they did it really well. I'm just a special type of person that can't deal with some of it, but it was really good all in all. And all the episodes are on YouTube. I'll link it down below, but it was really good. And it definitely brought your mood up. It's really funny. Like, again, I think I said earlier, it's a comedy before a romance, but I really enjoyed it, and I do, even if you've made it this far, I do hope that you guys go and watch it, support it, and I think that's it for this episode. So, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. One rest. We are friends, but we fight each other and like each other so much we might hit on each other. I hate that intro. Anyway, I hate that description because it doesn't give you anything. Anyway, so like basically like they have a bunch of cards and one king card. I'm losing my voice. They have like